You know, for several years now, Carole King's huge hit album, Tapestry, has held the record for staying on the LP chart longer than any other rock album in history. But coming up is a current hit by the rock band who have just broken Carole's record.
The hits from coast to coast.
Well, now at number 2, we're up to the current hit by the rock band who have just set a new all-time record on the album chart. A fantastically popular album of theirs has stayed on the LP chart longer than any album by any rock act in history. Now, if we take a look at Billboard's album chart, this is how things stack up for longevity. In first place is Johnny Mathis's LP Greatest Hits, with 490 weeks on the album chart. Second is the original cast recording from My Fair Lady with 480 weeks. And third is the original cast recording from South Pacific with 401 weeks on the album chart. But none of those 3 albums is rock music. Now, until just a few weeks ago, the leading rock album on the LP chart had been Carole King's Tapestry, stayed on the chart from 71 to 77 for a total of 302 weeks. And Tapestry has been the record holder for the longest chart-riding rock album in history. Until just last month. That's when an album by a famous British group passed Carole King with an album they put out in March of 73. And that album is still on the chart, now in its 307th week. The title? Dark Side of the Moon, the longest charting rock album ever. And whose album is it? Well, it belongs to the group whose single has been number 1 for the past 4 weeks, dropping this week to number 2. Here are the new champs for the longest chart-riding rock album in history, Pink Floyd.
We don't need no education.
Coming up.
Casey's Coast to Coast. American Top 40.
Now I have an AT40 extra. The song, Money. A song from the album that this week breaks one of the biggest records in the history of the Billboard album charts. The record for the most weeks on the survey. Now, the Billboard album chart lists the 200 top albums each week, so there's space for a good-selling album to hang on for a long time. For several years, this album has held the record for being the rock album with the greatest longevity. And in the past few months, it's been getting closer and closer to the record for albums of any type. Just 10 weeks ago, this album moved into second place, passing the 480 weeks racked up by the original cast recording from the Broadway musical My Fair Lady. Last week, this album tied the all-time overall record for 490 weeks, established 15 years ago by Johnny Mathis with his Greatest Hits album. And this week, this super album takes over first place with an unbelievable 491 weeks on the album chart, over 9.5 years. The album is by the group Pink Floyd, and it's called Dark Side of the Moon. As an AT40 extra, here's the only hit single to come from that album. From Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, here's Money. An AT40 extra from 1973. That's Money by Pink Floyd, the only hit single from their record-setting album Dark Side of the Moon, which this week sets an all-time new record for most weeks on the album chart, 491 weeks, more than 9.5 years. Incredible. And the countdown continues.
The hits from